chanter ça.
Mon compère, oui. Aoulo, oulo, oulo, mon compère, oui.
Ouais, dem chanter ça.
Mon compère, oui. Aoulo, oulo, oulo, mon compère, oui.
Ouais, dem chanter ça.
Mon compère, oui. Aoulo, oulo, oulo, mon compère, oui.
C'est chita n'a gardé. Nous c'est tout pour la vie menacée, vrai. Fondé de me chanter ça.
Mon compère, oui. Aoulo, oulo, oulo, mon compère, oui.
Fondé de me chanter ça.
Mon compère, oui. Aoulo, oulo, oulo, mon compère, oui.
Muncho oulo.
Frère.
Muncho oulo.
Aoulo, oulo, oulo, mon compère, oui.
Fondé de me chanter ça.
Mon compère, oui. Aoulo, oulo, oulo, mon compère, oui.
Fondé de me chanter. Toi problème dans le pays, ouais. Fais-nous pas qu'à joindre. Le côté pour nous, tout qu'à vivre en paix, vrai. M'obligé chanter ça.
Mon compère, oui. Aoulo, oulo, oulo, mon compère, oui.
M'obligé chanter ça.
Mon compère, oui. Aoulo, oulo, oulo, mon compère, oui.
Muncho oulo.
Frère.
Muncho oulo.
Frère.
Muncho oulo.
Frère, oui.
Muncho oulo.
Frère, oui.
Obligé chanter ça.
Mon compère, oui. Aoulo, oulo, oulo, mon compère, oui.
M'obligé chanter ça.
Mon compère, oui. Aoulo, oulo, oulo, mon compère, oui.
M'obligé chanter ça.
Mon compère, oui. Aoulo, oulo, oulo, mon compère, oui.
Muncho oulo.
Frère, oui.
Muncho oulo.
Frère, oui.
Gen longtemps n'a cherché. Le compte pour nous vivre. Le compte pour nous tout qu'à vivre en paix, vrai. Ouais, dem chanter ça.
Mon compère, oui. Aoulo, oulo, oulo, mon compère, oui.
Ouais, dem chanter ça.
Mon compère, oui. Aoulo, oulo, oulo, mon compère, oui.
Ouais, dem chanter ça.
Mon compère, oui. Aoulo, oulo, oulo, mon compère, oui.
C'est chita n'a gardé. Nous c'est tout pour la vie menacée, vrai. Fondé de me chanter ça.
Mon compère, oui. Aoulo, oulo, oulo, mon compère, oui.
Fondé de me chanter ça.
Mon compère, oui. Aoulo, oulo, oulo, mon compère, oui.
Muncho oulo.
Frère.
Muncho oulo. Muncho oulo.
Mon compère, oui. Aoulo, oulo, oulo, mon compère, oui.
Fondé de me chanter ça.
Mon compère, oui. Aoulo, oulo, oulo, mon compère, oui.
Fondé de me chanter. Toi problème dans le pays, ouais. Fais-nous pas qu'à joindre. Le côté pour nous tout qu'à vivre en paix, vrai. M'obligé chanter ça.
Mon compère, oui. Aoulo, oulo, oulo, mon compère, oui.
M'obligé chanter ça.
Mon compère, oui. Aoulo, oulo, oulo, mon compère, oui.
Muncho oulo.
Frère.
Muncho oulo.
Frère.
Muncho oulo.
Frère, oui.
Muncho oulo.
Frère, oui.
Obligé chanter ça.
Mon compère, oui. Aoulo, oulo, oulo, mon compère, oui.
M'obligé chanter ça.
Mon compère, oui. Aoulo, oulo, oulo, mon compère, oui.
M'obligé chanter ça.
Mon compère, oui. Aoulo, oulo, oulo, mon compère, oui.
Mucho hulo. Hey, mucho hulo.
Good afternoon and welcome everyone to a very important conversation. I'll try this again. Good afternoon and welcome to a very important open forum on Haiti's earthquake relief and recovery. My name is Nadine Duplessis-Kearns. On behalf of the 10-member Haitian Ladies Network Steering Committee, it's my pleasure to welcome you all this afternoon. We're based in Washington, D.C., and we are the largest global platform connecting more than 60,000 women and girls of Haitian descent. We start by acknowledging the tragedy that is still unfolding in the South region of Haiti and share our sympathies with families suffering the loss of life, injuries, and property destruction. Many of you know us because you've attended our signature Haitian Ladies Weekend in DC each year. And some of you have a long history of coming together with us each year, dating back over 15 years. Our mission is simple. We are working to connect all Haitian women and girls to build community, share inspiration, and celebrate our shared Haitian culture. And most importantly, facilitate meaningful engagement in Haiti. We're an active year-round network offering programming such as today to keep us informed. And we create spaces on many digital platforms, including LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. Our website is HaitianLadies.org. Before I introduce our moderator for today and share some logistics, I want to make sure to set the context for why we are gathered today. So many of you have asked for an opportunity to connect. Many of you have donated to various organizations, and some of you are on the ground right now working directly to bring about some relief. Since most news coverage often don't have the true pulse of what's happening and how to help, we wanted to give you an opportunity to hear directly from these organizations. We've learned the lessons of the past, particularly in 2010 with the earthquake, and we do not wish to exacerbate a difficult situation by repeating these same mistakes. Haitian Ladies Network is not directly collecting funds for relief efforts. What we are doing is supporting and promoting trusted partners that are helping these affected communities. We've shared a list of these organizations via email, and if you're not on our mailing list, please join us by going to our website, www.haitianladies.org, and our social media platforms as well. We are very fortunate today to have a wonderful moderator, Léonie Hermontet. She is the Director of Development, Communications, Strategic Planning at Saint-La Haitian Neighborhood Center. Madame Léonie was born in Haiti and grew up in New York City. She has a long career with more than 20 years of grassroots community experience in Miami's Haitian community. She recently also served as the Deputy Director of the Lumbee Fund of Haiti. Ms. Hermontet holds a JD from University of California at Berkeley, as well as a master's degree in urban and environmental planning. She will kick off our discussion and welcome herself as well in the panelists. The logistics for today, this is an open forum. So for those of you joining us in Zoom, we ask that you put your questions in the Q&A window. And for those of you on Facebook, when you are submitting your question, please write the word question so that we know this is something that we need to share with the moderator. Again, thank you for joining, and we look forward to a wonderful afternoon of impactful conversation with all of you today.
Thank you, Nadine. It is indeed a pleasure for me to be moderating this panel discussion. We know what technology has offered us. We have this platform that we didn't really have in 2010 to really discuss these issues, to air out the challenges and introduce organizations that are working both in Haiti and in the diaspora to ensure that our response is going to be comprehensive and truly connected to the needs of our communities. The process will be that we're going to start with introductions. So each panelist will briefly introduce themselves and the organizations that they're working with, and then we'll go in further detail into what work you're doing. So right now, please introduce yourself. We'll start with Dr. Mark Prue of Quisqueya University.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is indeed a pleasure and an honor to be on this panel this afternoon. And I am here replacing Dr. Jacques Lumarc, Director of University of Quisqueya, who had another engagement at this time. And I'm hoping that perhaps after his engagement, he will join and be part of the assistance. Again, my name is Mark Prue, long career in the United States as a full tenure professor at the University of Massachusetts, chair of the Africana Studies for many years, and of course, founding member and director of the Haitian Studies Association. And many faces here go back way, way long time attending these conferences. Of course, Leonie, Elizabeth, and others. And it is indeed a pleasure when we've been working on Haiti in the United States for many years and decided to return to Haiti after a sabbatical at University of Quisqueya, and to leave the United States, give up my tenure and positions and all these things, as you know, and to settle and work at the University of Quisqueya with many fine colleagues and researchers. And of course, this is where I am currently for the past 5 years, and perhaps will continue as long as I can breathe. Thank you.
Thank you. You and I are the old folks.
Thank you.
Dr. Elizabeth Pierre-Louis, please introduce yourself.
Hello, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be part of this panel. I am Elizabeth Pierre-Louis. I hold a PhD from Université Paradis of Nanterre in demography, and I also hold a master in library science from the University of Illinois. I work at FOCAL, this is Fondation Connaissance et Liberté, based in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and I am the director of programs there.
And now we have Coralie Noisette of Zamila Santé.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for being on this call with the Haitian Ladies Network. My name is Coralie Noisette. I am the Senior Development Officer for Zamila Santé. I am sure you all remember Zamila Santé from our calls last year during the early days of the global pandemic. So I will do my best to share some background on Zamila Santé, as well as an update on the current situation on the ground. So perhaps you all know that Zamila Santé was founded in Haiti almost 40 years ago. We are a locally registered organization in Haiti, and we are a sister organization of Partners in Health, which is based in Boston. ZL supports the Haitian Ministry of Health, the MSPP, in operating 16 clinics and hospitals through the Central Plateau and the Lower Artibonite. 99% of ZL's staff are Haitian or Haitian American. Our staff is about 6,800 employees. And we have a handful of colleagues who are not Haitian, but who are very integral to the work that we do in Haiti and are highly respected. Throughout the last 3 decades, Zamila Santé has provided support to the MSPP and the government of Haiti and international partners in the aftermath of hurricanes, flooding, earthquakes, and political instability. Our work focuses on whatever it takes, which is our unofficial motto. And our largest programs are HIV, TB, women's health, medical education, nutrition, and numerous other supportive areas, including gender-based violence, water and sanitation, hygiene, and education. We support 5 hospitals, including the Hospital of Mirbalais, also known as HUM, which is the largest reference hospital in Haiti. HUM has 350 beds. We receive over 1,000 patients a day and have over 1 million patient encounters each year since its opening in April 2013. Yes, and so once the earthquake struck, we immediately moved into action
No,
And
sorry, Coralie, I'm going to stop you, but right now we're doing introductions. We will talk soon about your emergency.
no problem. Okay, great.
Now we have Sophie Dessous of Haitian Diaspora Emergency Response Unit, also known as HDRU. So Sophie.
Thank you, Lainey. Thank you, everyone. Welcome again. HRA, HDRU Coalition thanks the Haiti Ladies Network to actually organize this platform to have, let's say, a broader discussion with localization as well as the HDRU Coalition. My name is Sophie Dessous. I'm the Executive Director of Haiti Renewal Alliance, HRA. We are the managing body and administrator of the HDRU Coalition. To give people a little bit of background, and we'll go more in depth on that. HDRU platform has been created, initiated, let's say, since the 2010 earthquake, putting together, gathering all the lessons learned that actually occurred in order to move forward in a much more streamlined way when a natural disaster occurs, might it be a flood, a hurricane, or unfortunately, as we recently saw, a earthquake. So the Haiti Renewal Alliance has multiple line of activities, including business development for diaspora direct investment, as well as foreign direct investment to continue the economic development of Haiti. But we also have an arm of humanitarian assistance, which we implement through the HDRU platform. Thank you.
Thank you. Right now, we're going to, as I had said earlier, we're going to go into specific descriptions of what your activities have been with regards to this catastrophe, with regard to the earthquake. Let's mix it up a little bit. We'll start with Dr. Pierre-Louis. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've been doing?
Yes, thank you. So Fondation Connaissance et Liberté Focale, which was created in '95, has a broader array of activities that we support. But specifically concerning the post-earthquake of 2021, we immediately started raising funds through Haiti Demain, which is a 501c3 that is based in the United States for specifically the organization that we have been working for over 20 years in our sustainable development program. Specifically, what happens is that we support organizations that can be smallholder farmers, micro agribusinesses, credit unions whose leadership are mainly women, also production activities that are related to other agricultural or agribusinesses, water management, and also training. So all of these, I could say, beneficiaries from Focal have been in contact with us for over 20 years, and these are specifically the populations that we are working with. Our action will be twofold. And the first part is, it was mostly getting assessments about what was going on. Most of these organizations are located outside of the main cities that are in the Southern Peninsula. So it took a little bit of time, but we have information. And what we decided to do, as we have been doing since 2010, then also in 2016, that was also for us a big test about how we were working, is first direct cash transfers to these associations that redistribute to families so that they can purchase goods in their communities or close to their communities. And this is very important because till right now, we're still receiving information that, for example, there is food, but there is no money to purchase the food. What we realized also that when you send the money, people can buy what really they need, but also it stimulates the local markets so that people can continue these channels. So this is the first fold. The second fold will be more long.
Can I ask you for, I'm sorry to interrupt, can I ask you for clarification?
Yes.
When you say you're sending direct cash transfer, does it go to an organization or does it go to individuals?
No,
and
it goes.
How is that distributed to the community?
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification question. It goes to the organization. So we have asked them to find out which are the local banks or how are the best means for us to transfer this money. And the organization have the habit already. They have registers for all the families that are working within the organization, and they have specific forms that are being sent to them so that they can say exactly, this is how much money we gave to this family concerned this, how many individuals in this household or family, and this is what we're going to use with the money that you sent us. And then with these forms, we have a better idea and it's accurate about how it's being sent. So this
accountability.
And we need this absolutely, and that will be very necessary because thanks to all of these efforts, and I want to thank this platform and the different platforms. The work that we have been doing has been echoed, and we will need this accountability and transparency also for all of the people who have been giving money in the US and also in Haiti. So this is the first part of and we have just started doing that right now. And then in the second fold, this will be the longer work, but I think that this work will be very important. That will have to do with housing, that will have to do with helping production channels, that will have to do with helping with getting all of the infrastructure, support to the infrastructure and rebuilding. So this is what the two steps that we're doing.
Thank you. It's important for us to understand that this process has multiple phases.
Thank
and that
you.
We are now at the initial phase.
Yes, we are and one point I wanted to make very clear is that this is traditionally what we have been doing. This is what we will continue to do. We are not in emergency. We do not send medical supplies. This is not our expertise, and we respect very much the other people organization who work in this domain, but this is not what we're doing. Thank you.
Okay. And just a reminder that this panel discussion is going to be, this webinar is going to be in English. We have a mixed audience. We have people who do not speak Creole, and so it will be, for the purpose of this webinar, it will be done exclusively in English. If someone wants to ask a question in Creole, we will translate, but it will be done in English. Coralie, you're next.
Thank you. So Zamila Sante's response, within minutes of the earthquake, many of us were on the phone reaching out to our colleagues that are located in the impact zone, reaching out to the Ministry of Health on needs and preparing trucks and medical supplies from our distribution center in Port-au-Prince. I had noted before that our 16 sites are primarily in the Plateau Central and the Lower Artibonite, but we do have a distribution center ready to provide support in any capacity that the Ministry of Health would like us to do. So since the earthquake struck, multiple teams have traveled to the impact zone. We've assessed medical needs, distributed supplies, and began the task of treating patients. Thoracic, surgical, and nursing specialists first traveled to Fond-des-Blancs, which was identified as an early triage space for survivors of the earthquake. In many cases, life-saving surgeries took place there, stabilizing patients, and then evacuating when necessary to the MSF, the Médecins Sans Frontières Trauma Center in Port-au-Prince, and also to our hospital HUM in Les-Vallées. While HUM is a referral hospital, its role in treating the most severely wounded from last week's earthquake is key to ensuring individuals with crushing injuries, orthopedic needs, and other services are continuous. We are also working with partners on the ground, including Health Equity International, which is also formerly known as St. Boniface in Fond du Blanc, as well as the Haitian Health Foundation in Jérémy, and the Hôpital Immaculate Conception in Les Cayes, a facility that we did spend almost a year supporting after Hurricane Matthew back in 2016. So our teams have helped stabilize patients, about a dozen patients on the ground, distributed medical supplies, worked with national and international organizations. And so we are continuously reviewing our response plan, adapting our activities according to the evolving needs and priorities that arise, while upholding our organizational commitment to strengthening and building a resilient health system for all Haitians. This is how we work closely with the Ministry of Health and health system strengthening. That's one of the key aspects. So our staff is currently coordinating with the Haitian government to identify key regions in critical need of support, as well as assisting with the government in coordination response efforts. And just lastly, we're working with closely with our Partners in Health supply chain team in Boston to bring needed equipment in affected areas. This past Tuesday, a flight left from Miami with high priority items, including sterile drapes and gauze and orthopedic equipment. So we're also looking into long-term support for healthcare facilities. So
this is really important to note that Zamila Santé had its genesis in rural communities. We know that Zamila Santé started in Kaj, in the Central Plateau, dealing primarily with rural communities. So it's, again, it's really important for us to point out that Zamila Santé was created in Haiti. The genesis of it is in Haiti, and has, again, built incredible networks with whom you guys are now working to make sure that aid arrives and continues to heal people in the South. So thank you. And now, Dr. Poole, we're going to talk about Quisqueya. First, tell us about what Quisqueya is, and then what your role is in this recovery process. Quisqueya University, I must say. Please unmute, sir.
Sorry. Thank you, everyone, and welcome those who just arrived. Again, my name is Mark Prue. I am a senior researcher at University of Quisqueya in the Center for Teacher Training, Research, and Innovation called INNOVED. University of Quisqueya, as you know, celebrating its 30th anniversary. The university has a total of about 3,500 students with 6 faculties: Faculty of Law, Medicine, Agronomy, Science and Technology, Education. And all these faculties, in fact, are working along with a committee where there are several groups working in the various aspects. Now, the first observation is that in 2010, University of Quisqueya had the experience of, among other universities in Haiti, of running after 6 months after the earthquake. Currently, there are a number of universities in the 3 departments that are affected that are contacting the university for several areas of expertise. For instance, in 2010, as I said, it was the first university to get up and run after 6 months. University of Quisqueya has gained expertise, particularly in questions of paraseismic construction. 2 months after the earthquake, University of Quisqueya received a team from MCER, which is a multi-center for earthquake engineering, which is based at Buffalo. They had trained over 200 individuals in paraseismic construction. University of Quisqueya also, during that time, had developed expertise in working with communities in terms of sending students and faculties to help people organizing their lives on a daily basis, and also running activities for children in schools. There were a program called, which is still in existence, Children First, because children are the first to be forgotten during time of crisis. So the university I will put together a program where we're trying to work with the social emotional, using teaching art, music, chant, dance, to help these students and these youngsters to cope with some of the traumas. And some of the work, about 50 works from these children, were sent to the Smithsonian Institute, and they're still in exposition at the Smithsonian. And following that, of course, the university received support to build a center for conservation on the campus, which is a Smithsonian center to conserve materials that have been, I would say, captured and saved from various arts center and other churches and so forth. And now, as you can remember, some of you perhaps remember that one of the children in the program that after the earthquake in Quisqueya won the contest for the logo for UNICEF. And I think there were some lessons learned from 2010. One of the lessons that is, as a rector, and we spoke about it recently, even if we receive a lot of money, but that's not going to assist, because as we know, very often in one of the committee that is working and rebuilding the local economy, seeing that in fact the folks are not looking for food, but rather looking for ways of improving themselves in other forms. So University Quisqueya basically is really making an appeal to folks in the diaspora to bring some expertise, because the human resources, that's what's missing, even when we have the financial resources. And for the past 4 years particularly, the university has been engaged in working in 3 major areas. One is to work on a blueprint developing capacities for the 572 sections communales. So the university has been able to cover about 7 departments. There are 3 departments missing. There are the West, Artibonite, and the North. But the university has to go back again to that program to look at the areas that have been affected in terms of working at the grassroots level. And then one of the main framework being used for this program is the Sustainable Development Goals by the UN, which is in fact from these SDGs, university has been able to look at this, section communal and look at various areas of development and develop a blueprint that is ready for anyone to work at the grassroots level. And there is also Force Jeunesse, which is working with youth and the communities, and Force Paysan working with peasants. And in fact, university proposed a platform to be able to serve as maybe the anchor or perhaps the hub for the resources being channeled to Haiti to help. In other words, soon I think the university is putting together a panel to look at how to finalize and channel rather resources to help Haiti. Immediately after the earthquake, the university put together a committee of 15 members composed from the different faculties and working on the 3 main areas, which are the 3 R's: relief, recovery, and reconstruction. Currently, a team of about 42 doctors and interns were sent to Fondé Blanc in terms of with mobile clinics, in terms of trying to help from there to launch support to the areas that are affected. And there's a committee working on the education. It's going to be doing an assessment and looking at what needs to be done, particularly focusing on getting children back to school. There's a committee focusing on a cultural artifact, trying to recover things that have been lost for the libraries, the UNFO, the churches. There's also a committee working on aspect of, as I mentioned, the health, and there's a committee also working on aspect that deals with the, I believe, infrastructure, trying to do an assessment of the infrastructure through the School of Engineering, and with the help they receive from the center in Buffalo, trying to assess and then be able to help people to deal with some of the construction aspect and also ways of creating temporary shelters. There's also another committee on the same vein working with consolidation of local product. Because as I mentioned, humanitarian aid can be a disaster for small local business. Since they're replacing goods and services, they are able to produce sometimes can, really damage the whole effort. So on the contrary, what we're looking at, in fact, the humanitarian aid must be seen as perhaps an opportunity to reinvigorate local producers of goods and services. So these committees are in place, and in fact, they're reporting weekly to the larger transversal committee, and then of course, bringing back information they got on the field, and then of course, develop new strategies to address throughout. So that's basically one of the aspects that we're working on, and then of course, we will develop more later as we go on.
Thank you. That's very exciting. I think that we really need, I mean, that's one thing that was missing in 2011. In 2010 was that, local vision, local action, local coordination. And for me, in terms of reconstruction, I think that, and I'll let Sophie talk about that, is, having a vision of what can be from Haiti would be a really powerful tool for us in the diaspora to really understand the needs. So last but not least, Sophie Dessous will talk about what her organization, HDRE or HRA, is doing in terms of disaster recovery and uniting the diaspora.
Thank you again. Thank you all. Thank you, Leonie. I will follow on because it's a great segue from Dr. Mark Pruin to what HDRE is actually doing to support local organization, because let's not kid ourselves, everything is local here. And that it was a big lessons learned from the 2010 earthquake, where a gazillions of INGO came and downpour their supplies, goods, equipment coming directly from the US or any other developed nation, and completely squandered the local economy, as well as the local NGOs trying to do work that couldn't find their own supplies and equipment. So let me backtrack a little bit and really hone in on the HDRE Coalition, and going back to what Dr. Prue was talking about the relief effort versus the recovery or reconstruction efforts. The HDRE platform is a coordinating mechanism that aims to align all organization, diaspora organization, mainly as its name is the Haitian Diaspora Emergency Response Unit, is to coalesce and come under one single umbrella in or effort, individual or collective, to gather all the necessary needs in country and ensure that those are not stand by either at a port or at an airport, get rotten, or that we choose to take the example of the INGO, buy a gazillion item and then flash them in the economy.
Can you tell us what INGO means?
Oh, sorry, thank you. Acronyms, international non-governmental organization. So it's all the general larger, let's say, nonprofit that we know of this world that usually at the time of emergency, and I'm not going to name names because I know it can be taken out of context. Each and every one of you know about them and know of them. They're large institutions. They're in 200, 180 countries around the world. And each time there is a disaster, there is an appeal for funds, there is an appeal of aid. However, whatever monies that you give is not necessarily going to the country that is currently going and striving for that aid. It is, let's say, shared within the platform of countries and within their own umbrella, which makes sense for them. But for us Haitians that are actually seeing what is occurring on the ground, we automatically think that those funds are being granted to Haiti when they're not. Actually, they're being granted to a platform of countries that are in need and that are within their portfolio. So that is a very important thing to stress, because the HDRE Coalition, what it aims to do is really focus on relief efforts as well as funding of that relief to Haiti and to Haitian and to local organization. Disaster risk reduction is a local matter. It is a local matter. It's not an international matter. International organization can come and help within the context of the local framework. And if, like in 2010, we do not have a local framework or a vision of how this needs to operate, we will get all our efforts, both international and national and diaspora, completely squandered. So this is the reason why Age Giroux came sort of informally in 2010. The co-founders, Firmin Baker and Magali-Émile Baker, started put together some ideas. And as the team grew, we started finalizing, refining, articulating exactly what we look into engaging when a diaspora strike. Might it be, a flood, a hurricane, or an earthquake, or a humongous landslide, as it occurs often. We are in Haiti prone to environmental disasters as well. So all this put together, what do we actually do? And you're like, okay, that's great presentation, but what is Age Giroux? Age Giroux is a coalition of nonprofit diaspora organization that focus in Haiti. They might be here in the US, meaning the diaspora, US, Canada, or wherever they might be, and they're mostly connecting with local organization. This week, Alicia, can I say, since the earthquake, we've been holding a daily 6 o'clock meeting for update on what is Age Giroux, how do we function, and how do we want all organizations to function? Because we were able to gather a process that the Haitian institutions, such as the DPC and AJERCA, which is the liaison of private sector for business and for civil society, that aims to really streamline the process of how to engage not only diaspora, but also international organizations. How do we engage when a natural disaster struck? And the AJERCA and PUN have themselves outlined a process, a 7-step process, where when a diaspora organization wants to donate supplies for the immediate need, how do they go about it? I understand it's logistics, it's procurement, is very tedious, and not everyone wants to go through it. But that allows us not to squander our efforts or monies when we're actually donated to a natural disaster in Haiti. And the most important thing, I think, is once we gather those funds, once we align those funds, where are they going? What is the monitoring, tracking, transparency, and accountability mechanism that we're going to be put in place in order to ensure, let's say, if one of the organization provides funds to the Age Giroux Coalition, how much fund is going to what and to where? And can we check from the moment that this is being accountable? Right now, the Age Giroux Coalition's main goal is to, we have received, like all of you, the needs assessment from the MSPP, the most urgent needs. Every organization, local organization in Haiti has their own personal list. We are currently going through the MSPP list, and we're identifying the top 5 needs that need to be accounted for right now in the relief effort. And Age Giroux Coalition, through HRA has pledged $50,000, $20,000 immediately relief to water, living arrangement, solar flashlights, as well as I believe we said, I forgot the 4 items, sorry, but there are main 4 items that we want to release funds for immediately. And in order to do that, we're purchasing as well through the mechanism of AJERCA for competitive pricing. So again, price gouging, because as we know, when we have a disaster, prices go up. And people take it as an opportunity to actually buff up the price and make money. Now, this is being a transparent and feasible mechanism for diaspora organization to actually go ahead and help quickly and have the service and goods delivered quickly to the people in need. And this is one of the reasons that we decided to streamline. And that is mostly the relief effort that we're focusing on right now. In about a certain number of weeks, HDRU platform will be mostly focused on recovery efforts. And we'll go through the steps of those recovery. How does HDRU in coalition, not HRA alone, but HDRU coalition plans to articulate the recovery process and the recovery priorities, because we are small, medium, large diaspora organizations, and we all are in different line of activities as well. So how can we streamline this process so that when the HDRU platform, again, is activated only in case of emergency response, we are streamlined and focused with better indicators and better line of conduit than what we saw in 2010.
Are you raising funds through HDRU or?
Yes, we are. We are raising funds through HDRU, and I'll provide the link here where you can actually go ahead and raise your funds. Might it be, $100 to $5,000? We're actually also actively looking for external donors and highlighting, let's say, local organizations, because it's important. Of course, our first needs go to the priority needs list, but also as local organization or here in the platform, our messaging is local. Our local organizations or our boots on the ground. They are the one doing the work. They are the one performing the work.
Okay, thank you all. I'm just gonna switch to another question. We know that the earthquake that occurred in 2010 was mostly urban. We know that there were some rural communities affected, but it was primarily an urban phenomena. We know that Hurricane Matthew was mostly rural, right? It mostly happened in most of the areas that are currently affected by the earthquake. Based on the lessons learned on both events, what do you think you can identify? And let's do it quickly because sort of time is of the essence here. What are the challenges that you are encountering now as you're doing this relief work? And let's start with Elizabeth. You're nodding. So Dr. Pierre-Louis.
Yes, thank you. It's a very good point. The difference is the access mostly. It's very difficult to access these communities. The roads have been also very much broken down, and we've seen pictures. So, and these were already communities that were outside of the main roads. So it is difficult to get clear assessments, to be able to know exactly what is going to be happening in the next days. We know that right now there are medical issues that are emergencies, but we know also that it is necessary to support these communities for the immediate support of their living arrangements. So these are, this is the main problem would be, for me, access. Second also is, and I think that these efforts that are being done right now is really important, is how to have these voices be heard for exactly what they need and how we can help them specifically. So I think that efforts like what we're doing right now, this platform, the different diaspora platform also, where we can put back this information, is really important. And I want to underline also what Dr. Prue said also about the lessons learned from the previous emergencies and catastrophes that we had about local markets, and the need really not to inundate these local markets, and really help the people who need to be able to reconstruct by themselves, informally or formally, the different channels that permit that money is getting back into the system, and that all the different entities can start functioning as soon as possible.
You've heard it here. Do not send food. They have plenty of food down there. To Coralie, we know that this time we've heard less and we've seen less instances of amputation. We know that during the past earthquake, it was heart-wrenching to see how many amputees came out of this process. So we're really happy. I don't know, do you know if there are a lot of amputees this time? And, again, what are the challenges that you are meeting as providers of healthcare?
Thank you for the question. We have been seeing a lot of crushing injuries, as well as the need for dialysis, and the need for triage on the ground. I also do want to echo some of the challenges that Elizabeth had highlighted, including the transporting things and staff to these locations in the South due to, gang violence and the insecurity. But on a lighter note, the lessons learned that we have learned from the 2010 earthquake is the need to invest in future generations. After the 2010 earthquake, ZL, we focused many of our efforts in training the next generation of Haitian clinicians, including emergency medicine, trauma, and surgical specialists. And since 2012, when we first launched the medical residency program, ZL has graduated 123 surgeons, nurses, pediatricians, family and emergency medicine doctors, which about 98% of them, they remain in Haiti and work, and 60% work within the ZL network in Haiti. And so HUM in Mirale Hospital, we continue to have six surgical rooms, which are fully equipped, and we have one fully dedicated OBGYN. And we've expanded our emergency department to better serve the Haitian population. It's one of the only emergency rooms operating in Haiti 24/7. And so that is one lesson learned, along with coordination with the Ministry of Health and the Haitian government. In order to foster long-term solutions, we need to invest in the health system strengthening, which involves accompanying the MSPP via technical support, building infrastructure and/or training of healthcare professionals. For example, Zamina Santé was one of the first organizations to respond to the Ministry of Health's request for treating COVID patients. We started working with the Ministry of Health to prepare the incoming cases back in February 2020, and we received the first 2 patients on March 19th, 2020. And since then, we've been testing thousands and treating over thousands who been needing medical support. And so this is just an example of, yes, we're actually doing the clinical work, but we are investing in the long-term support. So in addition to supporting the Ministry of Health, we're also working in strengthening other public institutions and health facilities to be able to better respond to future epidemics or pandemics. For example, the cholera epidemic in Haiti back in 2010.
Yes.
We built 10 cholera treatment centers at our sites, and we had then transformed them into encompass more, acute diarrheal diseases, and which eventually became our COVID unit. And so another example after Hurricane.
No, we have to cut, we have to, because I have to ask other questions.
Okay.
We're going to keep it focused on the earthquake. So Sophie, we know that we're dealing with a sometimes very difficult diaspora, very disparate views of what to do, very bitter by some of the experiences that they underwent in 2010 in terms of giving. And that's why we have issues with people just wanting to send clothes, et cetera, even when the locals are saying no. How does HDRU plan to address this issue of, what's the word, diaspora hesitancy or diaspora really
distrust?
Lack of trust, yes.
Distrust, absolutely. And that is a fair sentiment. I have to say, following 2010 earthquake, we all went into haze of donating and seeing that our efforts did not have the impact that we wanted to see, or there was internal fighting or external fighting. And it's a sentiment of, oh, you know what, Haiti, thank you, but I don't have the heart for it right now. It's too much. It's too cumbersome. We're not organized. We're not, and it's just listing and checking all the negative traits for us to just, head our hats and say and bid our goodbyes. We're really wanting to set the tone on a very different wavelength at H2 Coalition. And that's why we want to work with organizations of a diverse background and also diverse line of activities, because each and every one of us is a component on the building block. It's not a I mentality, it's a we mentality. And each and every one of us, local organization, diaspora organization, small, medium, and large, need to change that mindset. And it's a mindset that is unfortunately inherited sometime from our education or from our cultural background, that we need to switch, because that is being a biggest challenge and impediment to the country actually lifting itself up, and ourselves lifting ourselves up and being at unison. And to that, I do believe that, talk is great, action is better. Facts is even more. If in this opportunity, I call it opportunity, it's unfortunate that I call it opportunity, because the 2010, we did not come together, right? In this 2021 earthquake, if this is an opportunity for all of diaspora organizations to streamline together, to finalize a plan of action in the relief and recovery, we will show at unison our force, and not show only that we can work together, but show that we can get things done together. And it's normal to have fightings. I mean, we're all humans. Do we all go by a day and say, everything was perfect, everything was great, I did not, have any discussion with my higher ups or the people that I oversee. I did not have any difference of opinion. Difference of opinion is important. That doesn't mean that we don't have the same goal, or we cannot direct ourselves in a coalition way. So in terms of diaspora organization really looking to how to do the relief effort, one thing that the H2 Coalition platform through HRA is doing, first we identify the most needed needs, and we say, okay, this first 50K is going to this is how we're tracking it, this is where it's being delivered. DPC has the obligation to take on the supply chain of those supplies and equipment from the port or from the airport, and distribute the supplies.
DPC is.
Thank you for the acronym. Direction Générale de la Protection Civile. So it is the body that actually is the FEMA-like body that takes on the information and supplies when those information actually happen. So it's important for us to hold those institutions. Please be careful with the terminology. I say institution and not government for a reason. Institution remain years on and years out, okay? And we want to ensure that the diaspora as a unison always deal with institution that keep and create institutional knowledge so that we can improve upon years and time. Thank
you. Dr. Prue, I've noticed that one commonality here is that everyone talks about collaboration, working in unison with the government, following, government, certain agencies. Is that an improvement? Is that a challenge? How does Quisqueya align itself with that sort of strategy while building also strengthen the capacity of government to address emergencies?
Basically, I would say Quisqueya does follow the directives of the state, the government. In other words, we would go on the ground without informing the proper authorities issues of security. Again, as my colleagues mentioned, the issues of roads that are cut off, that we need to be informed. So folks that we are sending on the mission would find the proper help. For instance, what we've done, the fact that University Scare has been around for more than 3 decades, there are a number of alumni throughout the South, the Grandas and the NIP. So each of these committees that I mentioned earlier, the Committee on Education, Committee on Health, Committee on Cultural Artifacts, Committee on Local Development, they've been able to contact many of these individuals who have made arrangements on the ground for housing and, of course, logistical transportation. So I think it's important to work with the folks on the ground. For instance, colleagues that we have on the ground from ACT, IT Community Trust, we're in touch with to see how we can assist in terms of the work we've been doing this past year on environment, to work with the local folks, and work with children particularly. So I think it's important to put these efforts, because we need to do that as Haitians, both from the diaspora and in Haiti, as a way to avoid what happened in 2010 in terms of the disaster capitalism, because that was basically everyone was, as my colleague mentioned, just, like vultures, coming to get a piece of the action. This time around, I think we have to give it back to the local folks. Again, what we found out in Lekai, I was informed this morning that, the 5 gallons of water, is triple the price. And people are doing, what we call quote unquote black market, which is unfortunate. So we're trying to, see if we can curb that as a way to really, get the relief effort moving and folks can get back on the feet. So one of the things that University Kiskeya is planning, as I mentioned earlier, Kiskeya is proposing to work and create a platform to serve as a way to channel resources from the diaspora. And again, the university is very keen about that in terms of looking for human resources. We can have all the money.
Excuse me, doctor. What do you mean by platform? When you say creating a platform, what do you mean by platform?
In a sense, trying to create, a platform as a way to bring all the diaspora organizations, a way to maybe bring them together to see how these efforts can be this time around different. And then I think we're launching within the next couple of weeks a webinar on the theme of how to channel resources to rebuild Haiti. Because again, we're looking at the 3 phases. The phase of relief right now, we're doing on the ground with folks. And then of course, reconstruction, which is the 3rd phase, I think it's important. This time around, we have to really try to do it differently. And then doing it, Haitians helping Haitians. And then of course, we welcome folks, who are friends of Haiti. We're not saying that they're not welcome, but I think it has to be done in a coordinated effort. And the lessons that Kiskeya have learned, in 2010, I think will be served as ways to, this time to do it differently.
Now we're going to go to the money question. When someone makes a donation, when someone goes to your website and says, I'm giving you $100 or I'm giving you $10,000 for this relief process, we're talking about this relief effort. Where does the money go? I just want to say that, we know that, in some instances, people will say 100% goes to the effort, but we know that it's not always a possibility because organizations have staff, organizations have to pay transportation, organizations have a lot of expenses. And so it's personally, I don't think that it's fair for everyone to expect that 100% of what you're going to give is going to go to buy medical supplies, because you have to pay the doctors, you have to pay the trucks, you have to pay transportation. So I just want to create that sort of frame before you speak. So what happens when you give? Where does the money go? Who wants to start? Okay, Elizabeth.
I'll jump in. Yes, and that's the theme of this webinar today. So it's very good to get to this question. At Focal, Haiti Demain is our fundraising arm. It's a 501c3 and it's based in the United States. We are lucky enough that the person in charge works at Focal in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, so his salary is taken care of. So we can say that when you give $100, and these are the donations that we have been receiving, a lot of small donation or smaller donations, it's really important to understand that let's say 99.8% goes to directly what we say we're doing. What is very important for us is to say also what we are doing. We are supporting an existing network of small grassroots organizations that are smallholder farmers, micro agro businesses, credit unions, mostly managed by women. And these are the organizations that traditionally work with us, that are beneficiaries, and that these are what we're going to support. And it's very clear on everything that we post, and I wanted to make it very clear that that is what we're going to support. For transparency, we are really working on having a mapping of everything that's being done to us. We have used different mechanisms in the past for reporting, and that we are using also so that everything can be reported for our accountability. And this is—
and your 501c3 has to publish 990s, so you're going to have to present that. So that's also something that donors can go look at, because it has to be published in the 9. So that level of transparency is also a good thing if you're a 501c3 in the United States.
I hope I answered the question.
If I can add to what Elizabeth has said, the University of Quisqueya has set up on the website how people can donate, particularly if they need to donate cash from the banking system. And of course, there is a mechanism at the university and the administration to ensure that money that comes for the relief and reconstruction in the South through the various committees, the money is being accountable. In other words, all the pennies and dimes received must be spent directly. There are no folks in the committee that are getting paid through the money being received. For instance, I work as a senior researcher. I get my salary, but I serve as a volunteer as the international relations and the diaspora in the committee. So this work is being done on the basis of the university's motto. As you know, University of Quisqueya stands for University of Quisqueya's motto is knowledge and action at the service of mankind. So in other words, the students at the university, the faculty members at the university recognize that in fact service is part of our DNA, and there is no way that we will use any of the money received for that purpose, because there is a tight accountability on each committee on every penny being spent and what it is. Of course, as you mentioned, the issues of transportation, for instance, there could be ways of leverage some of it, but on the whole part, the logistics of the university has set up means to ensure that the university is taking care of logistics, of transportation, of fuel, and everything associated with travel to the area. And then, of course, as a university has to file every year its audit, and it's been very faithful in doing so to maintain its status. So that's basically the transparency. And as if you donate money, it tells you clearly there is a email address you can inform, and they will tell you exactly where and what categories your money was being supported. If you say it's for health, you will go to buy medicine, you will go to buy what's needed to take care of the folks.
Does the university have a U.S. counterpart? Does the university have a U.S. 501c3 fundraising counterpart?
The university doesn't have directly U.S. fundraising counterpart.
Okay.
In fact, this is what the university is moving toward doing and organizing a webinar in terms of setting up how the diaspora can channel the resources in the country.
Well, you have a diaspora partner right here. You should talk to.
Definitely. So get your email and then we'll move forward.
Okay.
Dr. Brew will be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you.
And so, Coralie, you want to talk about that? What happens when someone donates funds to Zamila Sante?
Of course. So I just want to state that Zamina Sante is extremely grateful for all the support that the Haitian diaspora has given to our organization. And we understand the concern about investing in an organization that values transparency, especially after the 2010 earthquake. So about 90% of our funds that Zamina Sante receives goes directly to our program services. 6%, the remaining 6% is allocated to general administration, and the remaining 4% is focused on development. So I just want to iterate that we value the transparency and provide information on our projects via our annual reports that you can access on the Partners in Health website, as well as, our specific donor reporting and or social media pages where we highlight, firsthand experiences of what our team is accomplishing on the ground. And so primarily the funds that we're collecting, they'll be going towards medical supplies, water and sanitation or wash supplies, be it aqua tabs, or other water purifying equipment. Also ready to use therapeutic food, including Nori Mamba, which is our own, the peanut butter paste that we produce at our facility in Copagan, not too far from Mirvale. We give it to our malnourished patients under 5 years old, free of charge. So obviously there's going to be a need for nutrition for these impacted zones, as well as our donations will support, vehicle fuel, so we can actually transport our staff to these areas, as well as, I had mentioned before, the support and administration staff, as well as field staff.
Absolutely. People need to be paid salaries. That if you work, you have to be paid salaries. So that's you can't leave off of air because you work for a not-for-profit. So, so Sophie, your turn.
Thank you. Thanks, Leonie. I think this question is poignant, and I compliment HLN to really put the axis on this particular question, because it's a question that all of us had since 2010, and especially from the fallout of the billions of dollars donated to Haiti. It's like, where actually did the money go? And or call as diaspora organization to step up. It's actually showcasing where does the money go from now on. I think that is the answer that we need to provide and address, not only amongst ourselves, but the international community as well, to showcase that we can coalesce together. Now, let's be on the nitty-gritty of actually how it's being done. I encourage all organizations on this platform to actually register on the onediaspora.org website as well, because we're going to put together, we're putting together right now a tracking system that is similar to the financial tracking system used by OSHA International. What does it mean concretely? It means that when you donate fund, we provide you a monthly update, a weekly update of the funds that got donated under the HDRU platform and the allocation of those funds to whatever the express needs. How much did it cost? When did the plane leave? When did it get delivered to DPC? You know your money, your $100, your $1,000, your $100,000 has gone to these goods, these supplies, these equipment, and were delivered at this particular location. So we're putting together this financial tracking metric that will be able to address, let's say, the delivery of supply. Now, for donation to local organization, that will be under a different type of metric, because there are also, let's say, transparency and accountability indicators that local organization will need to have checked in order to receive those funds. So it is a two-type system of monitoring financial transparency and accountability from each dollar that the diaspora actually funds to the affected areas of needs.
questions about that, but we'll get to some of those questions later. The last question is, what recommendations do you have to donors and members of the diaspora when choosing, when deciding who to give to, how to give, you know, and for example, when we look at, you know, someone wants to give directly to a rural organization, what should the expectations be? You can't, you know, how do you vet a rural organization if you want to invest directly in the communities that are affected? So, you know, I would love for us to talk about what, you know, not specifically for that question, but what recommendations do you have to donors, you know, as you're looking for trustworthy partners on the ground?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is a fair question. There are a variety of organizations, of course, that we know, Zamina Santé, Focal, etc. But there are also local organizations that are not that well known. Of course, they need to be registered. And I know in Haiti, it might be a process, but here's the thing. Financial transparency and accountability doesn't go without us knowing if you're registered as a nonprofit organization, or what we call in Haiti as BID, Association Sans But Lucratif, that you have a managing team and that you have a board that holds you accountable, that you have a bank account in a normal, transparent banking system, that we can ask you for reports when you actually use those funds and those goods to exactly what they're donating. So there are multiple steps of, let's say, check of accountability. And that's why it is currently, the state is, we cannot go quote unquote rogue and saying, oh, there's a small little organization that I absolutely love, but they're not incorporated. They don't have more than 3 people on the team. And we don't exactly know how they were able to historically document their past success. Right. And so donating to an organization such as that, you think you individually, as an individual or as an organization, you're doing great, you're doing good by donating, but you have no way of tracking those funds or your efforts to the affected area. So we really need to be mindful. And I do understand there are small organizations that are put in place, and I would welcome them to partner with the medium organizations that are already in place in Haiti in order to kind of scale them up, or at least support them scaling up. But that is an effort process that the Age Drew Coalition, as we are in this earthquake and as we're responding immediately to relief effort, cannot necessarily concentrate on building up smaller rural nonprofit. Those will need to be built up by local organizations in country. What we can do is, through our financial tracking mechanism, really account for, first, for the relief effort, where are those supplies, equipment, goods are going and being delivered to the affected area, and a report of these goods have been delivered, and thanks to that, X number of people or now have water, now have tent, now have somewhat of a living arrangement.
So Elizabeth, thank you. What do you say about that in terms of vetting small, you know, rural? I mean, that's just one question. You know, you can have other recommendations, but, you know, if I want to give to, you know, an organization of women in Petit Trou de Nip, how do I do that?
Yes, this is an excellent question, and this is something that we have to work on with these different organizations. I think what Sophie said is excellent. I think that the effort that is being done right now for the One Diaspora platform is really very good as well. So I think that these are specific means of not only a formalized vetting system, but I think it's a more systematic vetting system as well. Because in Haiti itself, it is difficult to get formalized. Even credit unions that are mainly organized via women, it takes time sometimes to get registered. So what we suggest is to sister with other organizations who exist already. And then there are different ways of vetting that I won't go into account, but what it's a lot of details. But what I think that this effort that is being done right now, the fact that collectively we're learning to know each other is phenomenal. And I want to applaud everybody that is on this platform, whether HNL or One Diaspora or HDRU, for all these efforts, for really understanding that it's really necessary to hear the voices from the ground and move it outside of our frontiers.
Dr. Prue, do you have any recommendations to donors or members of the diaspora?
I'll go along with what Sophie and Elizabeth mentioned earlier. It's a very interesting question, because sometimes if you are connected with a local organization, that you have some knowledge about the organization, and then you have some faith about the folks who are running it, and you see their track record, I think you can perhaps support and go directly. But I think the idea of the One Diaspora, of coalescing this effort, and then of course be able to know the local organizations that are accountable and work with them in that fashion, I think probably go a long way. And of course, building the kind of infrastructure that we need for a long time. This is why I mentioned earlier that University of Quisqueya is willing and looking for resources in terms of human resources, people to come and help, but also connected with the diaspora in terms of trying to serve as the spoke for the country. In other words, if you have the One Diaspora as the hub, channeling all the resources, and then being able to serve as one of the spoke or the main spoke, the counterpart, to be able to do that locally. Because the university has a know-how, no boasting, but the university has a know-how, the capacity, and also a wide network throughout the country of the various folks who are in various positions, either in private sector or in government sector throughout the country. And as I said, the work that the university has been doing the past 4 years, particularly to the TNC, which is Tracer Nouveau Chemin, create a new pathway. It's been able to work with many local elected mayors and officials, and in organizing groups of youth and peasants, and then trying to gather data based on the framework of the Sustainable Development Goals to create sort of a blueprint for development for each of these communities. So that's an ongoing work, and I think that could be very important data that we can provide to HDRU and other organizations.
And another plug for HDRU, they also have clusters. So they encourage diaspora organizations to organize themselves around clusters that are of interest to them. So it's education. So it's a very, I really think that there can be a lot of synergy between your platform and what they're doing. So we are going to, don't worry if you want to donate, if you want more information, we will share all that information with you at the end. Right now, we're going to move to a Q&A portion of the this webinar. So let me see. I think that Cassandra, you asked about what Cassandra Tiano asked, what transparency measures will be employed for the funds collecting. I think that we have discussed at length what we've answered that question. We hope that we've answered that question about what measures and what procedures and what mechanisms will be used to ensure transparency. Someone said that we have to know what to do before. Yes, you know what to do. You know what's going to be used with the money before they tell you. And, you're just going to have to wait to see with the reports how it was spent. Okay, someone wants to know, what does HDRU stand for, Sophie?
The HDRU is the Haitian Diaspora Emergency Response Unit. It's actually a framework that has been developed, refined throughout the age, or should I say throughout the years. And we actually presented that idea of refinement and have been granted the opportunity to put together a platform where we invite all other diaspora organizations to streamline the process of a response for relief and recovery efforts when natural disasters strike. Might it be, again, a flood, a hurricane, or unfortunately, an earthquake, as we seen. Now, it's funny that this occurred at this particular time, because on the week after the earthquake, so Monday the 17th, we were supposed to do a simulation of our Age Group Coalition through the One Diaspora. And as you know, well, August 14th, the universe told us that, oh, that's great, you can have a simulation in your head, but I'm putting you in action right now. So we're being put into action, and we have to, each and every one of us, answer the call. And again, this is not a sprint, this is a marathon. So we all have to stay focused into how we work together, how we partner together, how we coordinate with each other, and ensure that in all matters, we remain focused on the goal, which is, one, provide relief, immediate relief, and ensure that our funds are being tracked accordingly, meaning when Age Group Coalition says we have so far gathered X amount of fund, this is the allocation of the funds to the immediate need. And organizations themselves can register on the One Diaspora website as well to have their funds tracked, of course, when they and if they choose to provide that information. It allows for trust, and it allows for building confidence and building streamline of all diaspora organizations together, and for us as well to trust each other when working. It's not necessarily a big kumbaya, but it's a trust issue.
Thank you. Another question is on the chat was about the need of disabled people. How are the needs of the disabled people being addressed? People with disabilities. And then I have another question. I'm an educator who travels back and forth to provide consultation and support. My family is from Okai. I live in the USA. I have people who are looking to donate directly to me because they trust me, and I provide transparency. How and with whom can I partner with on this panel and platform to collect funds and get them to you? I'm also willing to and would like to travel to Haiti to work directly with those impacted and help with the reconstruction of schools in Okai. So we have one disability. I think it's Partners in Health, Zami La Santé, and then someone who wants to give, and you know, how does she give?
Okay, I can speak on, for example, mental health. It's important
disability, something like physical disability,
right.
You know, mental health as well, but.
Right, I mean, I'll get to that, but it's important to point out that mental health is key, not only to those directly impacted by the earthquake last week, but also to the millions of patients experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder from 2010 earthquake. So we at Zamina Sante, we do have a mental health team that is experienced in providing services to staff and patients. In regards to individuals with disabilities, we obviously do not discriminate. We provide help to anyone in need. We actually, a branch of Zamina Sensei is a children's home, Zami Beni, which half of these children are disabled. And so we have a lot of orthopedics or occupational therapists who are trained in how to work with these individuals. But going back to what I had mentioned about HUM and our emergency department, we do have experience working with those that are disabled. We are working in coordination with Haiti Air Ambulance and the U.S. Coast Guard to airlift any individuals who may not be able to walk. And so we're transporting them to either our sites in Mirale or in other facilities in Budapest.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone want to answer the question about to whom, you know, people are looking to donate directly to me because they trust me and I provide transparency. How and with whom can I partner on this panel and platform to collect funds and get them to you? Jouet pour nous.
Sophie, this is for you, eh?
I think
Yep,
Dr.
it
Pugh has
is.
the
Well,
right
I already put my information there, so I really encourage that person to email us at hdirenew@haitirenew.org. Our information is there, and we can provide her with guidelines of how to partner with us and be on the HDRU Relief Fund platform, so that those funds are tracked and she can inform all her members or friends of Haiti that want to donate, how they can donate and how they can see that those funds tracked. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so if I may add, I think, you know, this is the time I think the diaspora is really, you know, putting all the efforts and resources together, because, you know, as you know, Haiti is on several, you know, tectonic plates. And, you know, and of course, we are the pathway for hurricanes every year, and we know it. We can't wait every time that disaster happens and then we scramble and, you know, and trying to, you know, put the pieces together. Well, I think we should plan properly. And I think HDRU can serve as that platform because, you know, the resources are there, the willingness is there. And I think we need to really, you know, commend the folks that are thinking in terms of doing this thing on the long term, because we can't do things, you know, just sporadically when it happens, we do collect funds. No, but I think we need to do this thing. As the university is planning to know what are the resources, what exists on the ground. And we have, in fact, you know, database on the communes, you know, what they have, what they don't have, and be able to provide you with that information and to know when people are asking what they need, and we know at least, you know, what can be done in that area. I think it's really commendable to do this thing, not on a crisis basis, but really on the long term, because we don't know what's next tomorrow in terms of the hurricane and so forth. And neither do we know what's going to happen in terms of another gudu.
Great point. So we all have questions about, you know, what are the issues, you know, did any of the groups from your organization traveling to the south of Haiti to assess, bring and provide aid run into issues such as blockades, and how are these issues resolved? And then we have another one is, how did you get your donated items through customs? So let's start with customs first, and then how do you get them through blockades? Did anybody get, you know, things through customs? How do you get them through customs? Is there a process, you know?
Eleni, may I start the question just for
Sure.
people to, about 2 days ago, thank you. About 2 days ago, the HDRU Coalition has made a presentation. We have daily 6 p.m. and Leonie, you're always present on those 6 p.m. calls. We had about 2 days ago a presentation from the Kuhn and Ajurka that actually informed diaspora organizations, if you want to donate, this is the 7-step process that you should donate to. And I understand that not everybody's there all the time. We will have that presentation again available to you this week, either Wednesday, I believe, to ensure that everybody is informed of the 7-step process. And this is part of the HDRU streamlined process that we're trying to gather together. And we worked with Ajurka and specifically with the DPC on providing diaspora organization really a succinct manner of how they can ensure that when they ship supplies, either by air or by boat, they are not stuck at port for clearance purposes, for customs purposes, etc. And I really strongly invite you to attend to our calls. That will give you better guidelines so you don't squander your efforts when sending on supplies and equipment in country that can get blocked on ports. Thank you.
And how do you get through the blockades?
Well, the 7-step ensure once you.
I'm talking about on the road. They're talking
Okay.
about Martissa, they're talking about Chimère, they're talking about gangs. How do you get through, you know, what has been your experience in getting
the university has a security network, and then the head of the security happened to work for the, Haitian National Police. So on the convoy, the two things we try to do. Try to do the convoy through other organizations that are going to knowing the time they're going, but also the head of the security has been able to do it on a, step by step. If we're going through, we know we were having a Martissa, he can call, the precinct and Martissa to ensure that in fact we pass that. And then it's been going in that way. That is not to say that, ensure 100%, secure space for traveling, but it's been one of the mechanisms put and the logistics put at University Kiskeya as a way to minimize the kind of, insecurity and not put students, faculty in harm's way as they're going to do this kind of work. So I think the government also, is putting together some kind of logistical, but University Kiskeya has been able, and perhaps, lucky to have someone who will be able to do that and to be able to allow our convoy to go through without being, harassed in a way. But it's a very difficult situation for many folks.
If I may, we're not doing the convoy road. What we have been doing is receiving assessments from these organizations from the ground, which are registered. We have bank accounts, and we are doing wire transfer for them directly so that they manage the money and they have all the tools to be able to be accountable for how the money is being used. So for now, we ourselves at Focal are not organizing convoys to go to the provinces with supplies or because, as I said several times, we're trying to encourage the local markets to regenerate. Specifically about going to the South, we just have one volunteer who just went to the South last weekend, so immediately after the earthquake, who spent a week there, took pictures, and who has right now as a volunteer joined our team so that we can have really on the ground response and a clear idea also of what is going on there. We also attend the HDRU meetings as often as we can, because this provides a lot of information from the different partners. Specifically about Martissa has been blocked for several months now. Focal itself has been working on an urban park, which is a state park, the Park of Martissa, where we have been working for several years, and we haven't been able to access our facilities for the past months because of the gang activity. So, but we are still in contact very much with the community, and we have to say that throughout all this time, the Park of Martissa has been preserved, and we are very proud of that. Everything is very fragile, as we know, but we are having accounts that for now, the Martissa road has been available for going through, which doesn't mean that the different other aspects of going to all the way to Jérémie or inside the Southern Peninsula are completely unblocked.
And so I'm just going to still give a plug for the Parc de Martissa, which I think it's an incredible model. It took them 2 years to plan the construction of the park because they engaged all the communities surrounding the park, envisioning and in the creation of the park. So I don't think it's an accident that today the park is still unaffected by the violence. In a way, it's because there is total community buy-in into this, even the conceptualizing of this park.
And Just one point, I'm sorry, I will be really short about that. And this is has to do with what you were asking about recommendation for the diaspora. And this is something that passed through my mind, is about time. And I know that we, in our friends, our Haitians friends from abroad, we're one community, but I want you to bear in mind that efforts like that take time. And sometimes we do solicitate your patience to understand that we cannot necessarily give you immediately the results or the accountability that you are asking for, which is necessary. But just take that into consideration is the time.
That's really important. If you're investing in livestock, you know that it's going to take time. You know, the babies take about 9 months. If it's pigs, if it goats, I don't know, 2 years. No, I'm kidding. But, you know, it takes time for seeds to grow, for people to harvest. So, you know, that's a really important thing to understand, that when you invest, especially if we're going to be looking at sustainable development, it cannot be, you know, it's not going to happen overnight. And, you know, we have to understand that these things take time, but that results are measurable, you know, outcomes are measurable. And, but it takes time, especially when you're talking about, you know, animal husbandry, cultivation, you know, it's just going to take its time.
I agree. There's no quick fix for a complex problem.
Yes. There are a couple of questions for H. Drew. One of them is, how will we know which of these local organizations in Haiti are honest when they are registering? Will H. Drew set up a means in the registration process to weed out organizations that are not trustworthy? Another question is, how can we leverage diaspora dollars? I hope you're taking notes, Ms. Sophie. How can we leverage diaspora dollars from other pockets of the Caribbean community, like a disaster response exchange? And as for gang, okay, so go ahead. You can answer those questions.
First, I'll answer a question about the trustworthy local organization. I think it's a fair point. An organization can be incorporated, but not necessarily trustworthy, and that will be reflected upon, let's say, their annual revenue. Let's say the 99 similar reporting in Haiti that will be investigated into, as well as if they've been accused or of any, let's say, corruption or being sanctioned by disbarment in Haiti. I think right now, unfortunately, our only mechanism of vetting would be those two indicators. First, have they been debarred? And second, what is their annual reporting to the Ministry of Planning and Corporation? And based on that, we will be able to assess if this organization can continue on receiving funds or not. Regarding going back to Elizabeth Pierre-Louis, Dr. Pierre-Louis' point about the reporting of local organization and to be patient. It's true. We do need to be patient on that, but there is a certain number of information that need to be shared once we actually provide funds. I understand that transparency cannot be fully transparent into immediacy, but there needs to be accountability on the information that is being shared. Regarding the second question, I believe it was response exchange.
Leveraging U.S. diaspora dollars. Let me see, Marlon Hill. It was about how do you leverage U.S. diaspora dollars with other Caribbean nations in creating a sort of disaster exchange. process?
Agreed. That is a very good question. We've been creating those clusters, and sometimes other organizations from the Caribbean are interested in knowing what we're doing and seeing how they can help themselves, or even African organizations, to be honest with you. Do we necessarily have a cluster with regional Caribbean organization at this point? We do not, but it's an idea that we'll be taking into consideration in order to see how we can move that particular line of activity forward.
And how are local, can you tell us about how Haitian women are faring after this latest earthquake? Who's answering that?
The question.
It's a vast question. Women organizations are a lot of organizations with which we work, whether with the credit unions or within the peasant organization. We have we are getting accounts from them, and we know that there is a lot of vulnerability for women and young women during these times. So there are a lot of messages that are being put out right now. And I'm sorry to put a segue in that, I wanted to put out also for the mental health. Also, there is a hotline that came out immediately after the earthquake from the different associations of Haitian psychologists, where you can call and ask for help. This is something I wanted to point out before. But we are very aware of the vulnerability of the several populations during this time.
Thank you. Another question for HDRU. Is there a way for HDRU to set up an office or offices in Haiti with trained individuals that will be able to physically and video recording of the organizations that are maybe suspect or questions of their legitimacy? So are you going to be our eyes and ears in Haiti, since there is no rating system for organizations? Will you be our eyes and ears to let us know who's legit and who's not? I think that's in a nutshell.
That is a fair question. HDRU does not plan at this time to let's say follow this particular action item. I think it is upon the responsibility of the government of Haiti to ensure that its local nonprofits or held into a respectable way and monitor them accordingly, to disboard them whenever they don't follow ethical and deontological rules. It's not for civil society to actually, should I say, parent in a disciplinarian way local organization. We will follow the process as the process has been put in place. But yes, there are ways, for example, in the future for the HDRU platform to actually hold something. At this point, this is not what we're focused on. We're focused on relief effort first, and helping through diaspora funding address immediate needs, and helping local organization on the ground to have access to supplies and equipment. And just to piggyback on the humanitarian corridor that we talked about earlier in the 7th step, one way to ensure that those supplies and equipments are not being, let's say, hijacked by gang members or any kind of local arm authority that is in Haiti that is not supposed to take, those supplies and equipment, is actually ensuring that we're following the 7 steps process, and we are delivering those supplies and equipment to DPC, because DPC, as Shirka stated earlier this week, has a guarded fleet when it actually comes and pick up the supplies and service to deliver it into the affected area. And this is really a court of a National Guards, National Police, and it is really intimidating, let's say, for other groups to come and attack, as opposed to a local organization with its own driver and perhaps one armed a security guard to come and pick up the supplies. You put your organization at risk, you put your dollars and monies at risk. Just wanted to highlight that point.
Thank you.
I just want
Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
just want the importance of individuals to do their own research on different organizations, investigate how much their overhead costs are, pick an organization.
Can you tell them what overhead means?
Okay, money that is going towards, you know, administration, support staff, some operations. And so some organizations can have high overhead costs, such as like 20% of the donation. And so you want to be conscious of that. And also do research on how long the organization has worked in Haiti for. How do they collaborate with the Haitian government? That is important to see where they are aligned with the long-term mission of what they said they're going to do. And also investigate on their past work in Haiti. What marks have they done? What sets them apart from other organizations? You know, pretty much their reputation. So just so. Yeah.
Thank you. And for those of you who asked questions that have not been answered, we can assure you that Haitian Ladies Network will email you answers to your questions because they're all important. And we are nearing the end of this wonderful conversation. We know that, just to conclude again, that we have different ways. You know, we've all talked about the different ways that you provide help. Zamila Santé is on the ground, providing healthcare and dealing with those challenges, whether it's access, sometimes security. Focal has followed the route of dealing directly, wire transferring cash to local organizations so that they can use those funds to reactivate the local economies and help people get back on their lives. Mark Prue is again about the role of Quisqueya University in not just hands-on intervention through their medical team, but also in the planning, the visioning of what can be a sustainable, a rebuilt, you know, helping us through their vision and their teamwork capture what can be another unique opportunity to change the area, to change what the course of, you know, development for Haiti. So this is very exciting. And of course, we have Sophie Dessous with H. Drew, who clearly from the questions will hold a key role in ensuring a seamless flow of communication, vision, and funds between the diaspora and the organizations, the institutions in Haiti. So, you know, I'm truly honored to have been selected, to have been chosen to be the moderator for this important conversation. I'm going to pass this now over to Nadine, who will conclude this conversation. Thank you.
I just wanted to add one point. This is the first step of what we're going to do with the organization, the cash transfer. And the second step is going to be the rebuilding, helping the broken channels of production and also selling. So just to be, it's not only cash transfer. Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you, everyone. We are so grateful that you chose to spend your evening and afternoon with us. And I know that there are still some remaining questions in the Q&A. And I want to assure you that at the end of this forum, actually tomorrow, we will forward everyone who have registered for the Zoom the contact information, the name of each panelist, the organization they represent, and how you can get in contact with them directly. It's very important that we have an opportunity to share that information with you. So please, if you've registered for the Zoom, hang tight. We will send you the information on each organization and how to get in contact with them directly. And we will forward them all the questions that are still pending so that they have a sense of what your questions are and can provide answers to them as well. So I want to say thank you for joining our forum. I want to take the opportunity to thank our moderator, Leonie Martin, and our speakers for their time and the incredible work they are doing. So again, Dr. Mark Cruz from Université Quisqueya, so Quisqueya University. I'm sure you could tell which one is Dr. Mark. Elizabeth Pierre-Louis is with Focal. Coralie Noisette is with Zami La Santé. And Sophie Dessources representing HDRU, which is the Haitian Diaspora Emergency Relief Unit, which many of you had a lot of questions. Again, we will share the contact information for all these panelists. Thank you again. Haitian Ladies Network, for those of you who are new to us, we're based in Washington, D.C. We are led by a 10-member steering committee, and we are building the largest global platform connecting all women and girls of Haitian descent. We curate programming year-round in collaboration with partners and supporters to inform, inspire, and celebrate our culture. Many of you have attended our signature Haitian Ladies Weekend in DC each October, so stay tuned for what we can offer this year given the pandemic. I know many of you have asked how you can support and how HLN has put together this list of organizations and shared their donation links with us. We encourage you to visit their website, see for yourself the incredible work that they're doing, and make a decision on whether or not to support them. For us, this is an opportunity to bring you some voices and information from these organizations directly. So as far as what we're asking you to do is, again, we've said that from the beginning, do your own research, follow up directly with these organizations, and their work speaks to you, then definitely consider providing them the support that they need to continue doing the incredible work on the ground for the relief. And again, as someone mentioned, long-term recovery. It is important that we start thinking as a diaspora and as friends of Haiti, how all of us can come together for the long-term recovery and rebuilding. And we welcome all to join us Haitians in this effort. We know we have many friends who have joined us who are not Haitian, part of the Haitian diaspora. So it's important that you know that there is a way for you to get involved with supporting us. The email address for Haitian Ladies Network is info@haitianladies.org. And again, our website is haitianladies.org for you all to get in contact with us. So I want to say thank you. I know it's 6:03 p.m., so we've gone a little bit longer than we had intended. For those of you asking, this session is also Facebook Live on our Haitian Ladies Network Facebook page @Haitian Ladies Network. So it's live. You can go back and watch it from the beginning if you join us late. And again, in the follow-up email, I will put a link to how you can watch this entire session that we have recorded and broadcasted on Facebook Live. Again, thank you to you all, the moderator, the panelists, the Haitian Ladies Network Steering Committee. We have put this together based on your questions of information and what is going on the ground. And we take this as a very serious responsibility to be a bridge to connecting all of you all with organizations that are in Haiti doing the work that we are all committed to doing for our country to not only recover, but to thrive in the future. So I want to say thank you to all of you, the audience, Friends of Haiti, Haitians, and the Haitian Ladies Network Steering Committee for the incredible opportunity to bring you this information. And it won't be the last, so please do sign up for our mailing list, and we look forward to continued conversation and continued engagement. Have a nice Sunday evening, everyone. Bonsoir tout le monde. Au revoir.
Merci un peu. Merci un peu. Théonie.
Gen longtemps n'a cherché, le compte pour nous vivre, le compte pour nous tout qu'à vivre en paix, vrai. Ouais, dem chanter ça.
Mon compère, oui. Oulo, mon compère, oui.
Ouais, dem chanter ça.
Mon compère, oui. Oulo, mon compère, oui.
Ouais, dem chanter ça.
Mon compère, oui. Oulo, mon compère, oui.
C'est chita n'a gardé. Nous c'est tout pour la vie menacée, vrai. Fondé de me chanter ça.
Mon compère, oui. Oulo, mon compère, oui.
Fondé de me chanter ça.
Mon compère, oui. Oulo, mon compère, oui.
Muncho ulo,
Frère,
muncho ulo,
frère,
muncho ulo,
compère, oui. Oulo, mon compère, oui.
fondé de me chanter ça.
Mon compère, oui. Oulo, mon compère, oui.
Fondé de me chanter. Toi problème dans le pays, ouais. Fais-nous pas qu'à joindre. Le côté pour nous tout qu'à vivre en paix, vrai. M'obligé chanter ça.
Mon compère, oui. Oulo, mon compère,
M'obligé chanter ça.
mon compère, oui. Oulo, mon compère, oui.
Muncho ulo,
Frère,
muncho ulo, muncho ulo, muncho ulo, obligé chanter ça.
mon compère, Oulo, mon compère, oui.
M'obligé chanter ça.
Mon compère, oui. Oulo, mon compère, oui.
M'obligé chanter ça.
Mon compère, oui. Oulo, mon compère, oui.
Muncho ulo,